Good afternoon, South Africans. Thank you so very much for giving me the opportunity to engage you during these difficult times of our history and the country being faced by the entire world. It is a great opportunity for me to, while I'm stuck here at home, you are stuck in your respective homes, that we can still engage and really get prepared to answer your questions, make sure that there is that mutual engagement so that we move our country forward. The first question relates to the question of why I left the DA. People of Johannesburg on the 3rd of August 2016 gave the DA 38% control of Council of the City of Johannesburg. 2 weeks or so later, on the 22nd of August, same year, 2016, Council elected me as the first non-ANC executive mayor, running a coalition, 7-way coalition government made out of different political parties. I was excited, I was fearful, I dreaded that opportunity as much as, without any doubt, I got into this job to unseat the ANC, but I got myself into something that was uncharted territory. To my surprise, from day one, the DA was the most difficult partner in this. Been the most difficult partners because some people in the DA never believed in this coalition arrangement. And what I found it really obviously unacceptable to me was that, as you people are aware, I was not on the DA leadership who made this decision to enter into this coalition arrangement. My role at the time was to make this coalition government work. Unfortunately, some were not really prepared, and obviously for that reason made my life really very difficult. Expressing arrogance that we are a DA government, and I kept saying we're a DA-led administration, we're a coalition government. Another issue that was really for me totally unacceptable was their refusal for me to adopt a proper policy. Some of them going to the extent of saying to me that why spend money, their residents' money, their voters' money in areas where they were never supported. And my belief and the reason why I entered public office is because government's responsibility is to serve all society, regardless whether they voted for you or not. More especially in a country like us where inequality is so high. The final nail came when the DA was ultimately captured by what I really regard as right-wing elements, and I decided never to associate myself with such characters. And I made it very clear 2 weeks before the time that if these elements take over the DA, I'm out. And I stood to my words. On the 21st of October last year, I then resigned as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg and as a DA mayor. Let me deal with this question of economic collapse. You know, most of us as South Africans are under impression that rating agencies' approach to South Africa is as a result of the coronavirus challenge that we are facing. Yes, absolutely, it has added to our challenges. However, our challenges of this country are of a long-term structural nature. Firstly, starting with the overspending by government. Our government has been spending more money than they were collecting. Declining tax base. If you look at a country of 58 million South Africans with 39% unemployment rate, with a tax base of roughly 6%, without any doubt, you don't have to be an economist to realize that this is unsustainable. And at the same time, 6 million or so, but at the same time declining. You can imagine what's going to happen to us as a country post-coronavirus. with factories, businesses closing down. Therefore, our tax base is going to decline even further. This question of bailouts of this failing SOEs. For an example, SA Airways, over 20 billion rands of bailouts over the last few years. You can imagine what we would have done with 20 billion rands in building houses for poor people, building infrastructure that this country requires, building and encouraging businesses to survive. Massive unemployment, that's an issue that I've already raised, the 39% unemployment rate. In the last few days, I've been listening and watching the news. Economists and experts are saying that South Africa's economy this year is going to shrink by at least 3 to 3.5%. So you can imagine what type of unemployment level we're going to be sitting with. High levels of inequality. South Africa is known worldwide to be the most unequal society in the world. I personally don't want to live in a kind of society like this, and I know you don't want to. I don't really believe there's any human being who'd like to live in a country where you have certain people like myself living here in Sandton and my neighbors here in Alexander living in a deplorable situation. South Africa has got a responsibility to ensure that we take our people out of inequality. Restrictive labor laws, very unfortunate situation. This is an issue over the last 20 years I've been actually raising quite openly. We cannot have this tripartite alliance government with the so-called ANC, COSATU, and the South African Communist Party. It is for that reason our country has never really been able to come out with economic policies that can really provide certainty and provide stability in our country's economic situation. So I think it's important that we ensure that labor unions and labor organizations, they stay out of labor matters, and we need them to protect vulnerable people. But they cannot really be part of government, so that government can look after their affairs and the interest of everyone, employed, unemployed, big and small businesses. Whereas what we've been experiencing the last 28 years, we had a labor regime that looked after the employed, that looked after big businesses at the expense of small businesses and unemployed South Africans. This question of junk status as a result of the two rating agencies, Moody's and Fitch, over the last 2 weeks, is because of the rising government debt, which is today just over 60%. And now you can imagine South Africa in a few months' time would not really be able to go out and raise debt in the open market at cheaper rates. So that is really something that gives anyone a frightening nightmare. And it's something that I call upon government, and I think all of us need to call upon government to review the budget which was presented in February of this year. The budget is no longer in line with our revenue streams. So the sooner the government, as soon as this COVID-19 is behind us, to sit together to come out with a budget that is going to be in line with our revenue streams. The collapse of the exchange rate, which will impact the cost of living. You know, just a few years ago, I remember very well when I started traveling back in 1986, having the opportunity as a young entrepreneur from South Africa going to the United States. Those days, the rent was under $3, 3 rands. Today, the rent is close to 20 rands to a US dollar. You can imagine South Africa, like all the other countries, our manufacturing base is dependent on us buying raw materials from all over the world. Now with the rand at 20 rands, at the time of us actually doing business. When we did the plans beginning of this year, most of the businesses, no business I can assure you in this country, when they did their current budget, based the rent at 19 to 20 rands. So we are in a real crisis, and a crisis that is not a joke, it's a crisis that is a reality. As regards what measures we need to take to restructure our economy so that we can survive post COVID-19, I think we need to restructure the executive by reducing the size of the cabinet and doing away with non-essential departments and agencies at all spheres of government. I'm sure all of us as South Africans are aware of the size of our government, of our cabinet. One example I always use is the duplication of the Department of Education, the one that's actually failing our people. What we have to really have to dismally failing cabinets. I don't have to really give the rest, but our executive, our cabinet can be easily halved and use that money into our economy. Does South Africa need provinces? I've had an experience as executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg to look at how billions of our taxes are actually being used by provinces that don't add any value whatsoever to South Africa. In a country with such unemployment, high levels of unemployment, massive infrastructure shortages, I strongly believe and would really encourage and advise South Africans that we need to collapse these provinces. They have nothing to add. There's some of the duties and the functions that they perform can easily be moved across to the provinces and use professional people within national treasury to ensure that they just pass this money to the municipalities. I think something that some people might take it to be controversial, but we cannot afford as a country to really have such a huge public sector wage bill. My call is to really look at reducing this by at least 25%. Because at the moment, as everyone is aware, businesses all over the world are cutting down on staff, they are reducing their salaries. And government, where do they get their money from? From the very same people who are today losing their jobs. So I believe and encourage and advise South Africans, let's really look at asking government to reduce the wage bill by at least 25%. The question of failing SOEs, I think we need to privatize or liquidate them if necessary. There's some of them, honestly, they don't have any value whatsoever that they're adding to our economy. For an example, South African Airways. A poor person from Kayasins or from Soweto who have never really flown in their lives, but every day when they pay taxes, when they go and buy essential services, they pay VAT. But this service is exclusively for the rich. So I believe strongly that SA Airways in particular must be done away with, even if we must give it away to someone else, because that particular company will be able to employ people on a sustainable manner. They will be able to pay taxes coming from the wages and the taxes and the profits that they will make. We need to cancel low priority projects at local, provincial and national government levels and return unspent funds to national treasury. This is really crucial, where other spheres of government cannot really spend the money. Instead of this money being retained without being properly utilized, let us spend and return these funds to national treasury for national treasury to put into the economy. Let us implement harsh austerity measures. We need to save as a country. We need to ensure that international travel. I remember when I took over as the city of Johannesburg, 28 million rands of international travel in 1 year. We managed to bring it down to just over 3 million rands. So if the city of Johannesburg could do it then, I believe it can be done nationally. I see in government, every meeting, people are eating the entire day. Is there any need when the people working in the private sector have to really bring their own food from home or buy their own food? Why should government employees being fed? Not only fed once or twice a day, they have a meeting the whole day, there's food all the time. And you look at how much these people are earning. I think and I believe that we need to declare corruption public enemy number one. For as long as South Africans we allow public servants to steal, loot openly our purse, our public purse, we are not going to really make it. I think we need a government that can declare corruption public enemy number one. And it must not really be something that we say ideologically. It must be something that we practice. We need to empower our criminal justice system, giving them the powers, independent powers, to pursue anyone, politician, businessman, unemployed, employed South African. Anyone who steals public monies must be punished. Yes, it is possible, but it can only happen if we as a country decide to take tough, unpopular decisions today, not tomorrow. I think and believe very strongly that we need to reduce the power of the unions. And the only way you do that is to ensure that unions are independent of government. We need unions, as I've said it and indicated earlier on, to protect vulnerable people. But they cannot really be part of government. If unions wants to be government, let them go out there and go for elections to ensure that they can really be the government. But we cannot really have this confusing situation of the tripartite alliance that we've experienced over the last 26 years. Without any doubt, I fully agree with black economic empowerment or redress, whatever name you'd like to really call it. But one thing I really want to really make very clear, I don't really believe in the current patronage network practiced by the ANC over the last many years. A system that is there to only benefit politically connected South Africans or ANC cadres. When we talk about economic empowerment of previously disadvantaged, government needs to come out with a system that is equitable, that actually benefits everyone regardless of their political affiliation. Something that we can sell to the business community, because it is in the business interest to ensure that we see equality, we see the participation of black people in our economy, with major focus on education, because without educating our people, we are not going to survive or make it as a country. This question of foreign nationals, particularly illegal ones, it's a very, very necessary subject matter to discuss. As much as some people take it to really be controversial, but we have to really discuss it. We live in a country where 55% of our people live below the poverty line. How can anyone expect South Africa to assist other people of the world when they are unable to take care of their own people? I remember my days as a mayor of the city of Johannesburg requesting our health department to really do a study where we discovered minimum of 26% of people accessing our services being foreign nationals with undocumented Not, I'm talking about just really foreign nationals. There are many foreign nationals who are in our country legally, aiding enormous, making enormous contribution to our country's economy. And we need them, and we will keep on attracting them. But South Africa cannot really be a country where we attract people with criminal intent, firstly. And secondly, those who are not adding any value. Jobs that can be done by South Africans, be it cleaners, be it security guards, be it drivers, be it bricklayers and so forth. These jobs must be done by South Africans so that we can bring down our employment rate. For me, if I need to really assist other countries, let me first empower South Africans, and with our excess cash, if ever we do manage to make it, then we'll go and assist those countries so that they have stable governments instead of putting pressure and collapse the South African economy as well. Thank you very much, South Africans, for yet another opportunity to engage with you. You know, given the opportunity, I wish I could talk to you the whole day, but I think all of us have got limited time. But as I've indicated, this is going to be a regular feature, and I'm happy to really announce that I had a meeting this morning with my team, and we've decided Mr. Funzi Nkubeni, who recently joined us, working to establish structures throughout the country, who is going to really be part of this engagement through this platform while we're still waiting for the upliftment of the lockdown. So I'm really very excited about this, and I can only say thank you, thank you, thank you.